Okay, so when you hear the phrase assembly line, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Cars, right? Or maybe some other small product. You're probably not picturing a massive cargo plane. But what if I told you that the secret to fixing a jumbo jet is to treat it just like a car on a factory floor? It sounds a little nuts, but that's exactly what FedEx did to solve one of their biggest, most expensive problems, keeping their huge fleet of planes up in the air. I mean, really think about that for a second. How do you even begin to fix a giant airplane? We're talking about one of the most complex machines humanity has ever built, with millions and millions of parts. You can't just wheel it into your garage for a quick tune-up. The scale of the problem is it's mind-boggling. So where do you even start? Well, the answer is so simple it's almost genius, and frankly, a little weird. You treat it like a car on an assembly line. I know, it sounds completely counterintuitive, but that's precisely the leap they made. They stopped looking at maintenance as a chaotic one-off repair job and started seeing it as a predictable, repeatable process. And you know what? That one single shift in perspective, it changed absolutely everything. So what prompts such a radical change? Well, like a lot of big innovations, this one was born out of a crisis. Remember 2008? The global recession hit, and suddenly every company on the planet was under immense pressure to find major cost savings. FedEx was no different. They started looking at their biggest operational expenses, and one line item was blinking in bright red: aircraft maintenance. And they zeroed in on one process in particular, something called a C-check. Now, let's be clear, this is not your 10,000-mile oil change. This is a massive top-to-bottom deep dive overhaul. It's so intensive that it takes a plane completely out of service for weeks at a time. It's absolutely essential, of course, but it's also incredibly expensive and time-consuming. And when I say time-consuming, that's an understatement. Before this whole transformation, the C-check process wasn't just a problem, it was a monster of a problem. And the number they used to measure it, well, it's almost hard to believe. Get ready for this. 32,715. That's the average number of man-hours it took them to complete one C-check on a single airplane. Let that sink in for a second. To put that into perspective, it's like having one person work nonstop, 24/7, for almost 4 years to get one plane done. The inefficiency was just staggering. So you have to ask, where was all that time going? It wasn't because the technicians weren't working hard. They absolutely were. The problem was the system itself was just pure chaos. People were spending huge amounts of time just waiting for a part to arrive, for a specific tool to be free, or for another team to finish their task. They were wasting time just searching for materials in a giant hangar. And on top of all that, there was no standard process, so every single C-check was like reinventing the wheel. And this is where the light bulb finally went on. FedEx decided to bring a totally different way of thinking into the maintenance hangar: lean manufacturing. You know, the philosophy that's all about relentlessly hunting down and eliminating waste. They made that one crucial shift. They stopped treating the C-check like a messy repair job and started treating it like a streamlined factory process. And their strategy really boiled down to 3 key steps. First, map out every single action from start to finish to really understand where all the waste was hiding. Second, standardize the work. Create one best, most efficient way to do a task so it's repeatable and predictable every single time. And third, visualize the flow. Create a system where everyone could see the progress in real time. So how do you map something that enormous and complex? Well, you know that old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. They took that massive C-check process and broke it down into 68 distinct, trackable milestones. Each one was a major phase, like inspecting the landing gear or overhauling the avionics. And suddenly, what was once just chaos became a clear, manageable roadmap for the entire operation. And they didn't stop there. This is where the standard work idea really comes to life. Each of those 68 milestones was broken down even further into precise 4-hour blocks of work. This meant a technician wouldn't get a vague task. Instead, they'd receive a kit with the exact parts, the exact tools, and the exact instructions for a very specific 4-hour job. This created a predictable rhythm, a pulse for the entire hangar. Okay, so that's the plan. A really elegant theory. But did this radical new approach actually work in the real world? The answer is a huge, resounding yes. The transformation from a chaotic, unpredictable process to a smooth, clockwork-like operation was just incredible. The results were just staggering. Let's look at the numbers. The man-hours required for a single C-check plummeted from that insane 32,000 plus number all the way down to just over 21,000. That's a reduction of more than 11,000 hours of labor. For every single plane? In percentage terms, that's a massive 34% reduction in labor. And let me be clear, that isn't just a small tweak. That is a fundamental reinvention of the entire process, and it was achieved by eliminating waste, not by rushing or cutting corners on safety. And the efficiency gains had a ripple effect. It didn't just save time on each plane, it meant they could service more planes. Their annual throughput, the number of C-checks they could complete in a year, more than doubled. It went from just 14 all the way up to 30. They literally doubled the capacity of their maintenance facility without building a thing. And that is the real bottom line, isn't it? An airplane sitting in a hangar is a cost center. It's just losing money every second. But an airplane in the sky is a revenue generator. By getting planes back into service that much faster, FedEx dramatically improved the productivity of their entire fleet. What I love about this story is that while it's all about airplanes, the lesson here is completely universal. It's such a powerful demonstration of how these core principles of efficiency, of finding and eliminating waste, can be applied in almost any field you can imagine. And the source material really says it best. Lean principles are universal. It doesn't matter if you're building cars or maintaining giant airplanes. The mindset of identifying what your customer values, mapping out the process, and then just relentlessly getting rid of the waste, it can unlock incredible gains anywhere. So that really leaves us with one final question to think about. A question for you. What processes in your own work or on your team could be seen in this new light? Where is that hidden factory, that chaotic process just waiting for someone to come along and streamline it?